So, gamers, you may have seen that there is a new Honkai game coming out. Look, I'm not a fan of it because, well, the gameplay is teamfight tactics. We're going to take a look at it, but the most important thing is, well, what you see on my screen here. Hoyoverse Honkai Nexus Anima infringes, quote unquote, Nintendo's mount patent from Palworld lawsuit, IP consultant says. The patent in question has become very broad following a mid-case amendment by Nintendo. What? So, my chat's hating the gameplay. It valid, honestly. It's bad. I don't want another TFT. League is terrible. The TFT is terrible. I don't need. They do TFT game modes in every like Starro. I think Starro had one. I know Zinless has had one. Wuwa had one. And now a game entirely TFT. Like, I'm gonna crash out. Anyways, before we look at that, I'm gonna read this article. This one's short. They have a couple of like follow-up ones that we're gonna take a look at here. But I just cannot believe Nintendo is trying to change their lawsuit mid-case and make it more broad, and it's possibly gonna affect Hoyo. Now, here's the thing: Hoyo operates in China, so you know maybe nothing's gonna happen. There is no war, right? So ever since Nintendo and Pokemon Company first announced their patent infringement lawsuit against Palworld maker Pocket Pair, people have been worried about the broader implications of the case, according to IP consultant Florian Muller, who has been covering the lawsuit extensively at Games Fray. Hoyoverse's upcoming open world creature collecting game, Honkai Nexus Anima, appears to fall within the scope of one of Nintendo's patents Palworld is accusing of infringing. Might be real, TFT is only alive because every e-girl on the planet plays it for some reason. They're alive because of brain damaged woman. Let that sink in. That is true. That is 100% true. Yeah, TFT, Valorant, and all this other stuff only exist because they are free games where the e-girls are currently, and they have not played any other game. That's why. E-girls, please play literally anything else. These competitive games, or quote-unquote competitive games, they all suck. Valorant, CSGO, so on and so on. Like, all of them are bad. That includes Overwatch and Marvel Rivals. You know, all across the board, no exceptions. Those latter two are only better because there's fun customs and that the game is actually good. Anyways, the patent in question is recently amended to mount of flying objects. Bro. What? Are we so for real? You're telling me you can't have flying objects, period? What? So what? There's no sparrows, no dragons? Like, I'm so confused. There's no way, dude. Japan's gonna do something about this. There's no way this can be made into law. I don't know how it works exactly over there. It's going to be obviously different than like the US legal system. But at least over here, when things are decided in courts, they're decided at that level. And so if it's like the Supreme Court, like any higher level court, it basically becomes law. Like that's what they reference to for future court cases, that ruling. So whenever things are decided over here in America, that becomes the law effectively. I don't know if that works the same in Japan. But if that's the case, do we just not make video games like operate inside of Japan? Because Nintendo doesn't want you to have flying objects. The implications of this are absolutely insane. So if I want to make a game with any sort of flying object that gets mounted, an orb, a dragon, like whatever it may be, can I just like not have it in Japan? Or am I gonna like face a lawsuit? Like I'm just, this should be denied by the court for simply being too broad. And if it's not, Japan's got to do something about their legal system, because this is ridiculous, bro. You're letting Nintendo get away with too much. I understand that there's this massive like group of Nintendo haters, and I wouldn't really say one of them, but they definitely do way too much legally. That they get away with way too much stuff legally. It's insane. Like people talk about the worst gaming companies. I always think it's Sony for, you know, various reasons, but like this right here is stuff that gives people fuel for any argument saying that Nintendo is the greediest and whatnot. Like this is just absurd. There's why why is that even possible? This patent originally focused on the ability of players to smoothly switch smoothly, quote unquote. Switch between different mountable creatures in game. Early in litigation, a Japanese patent attorney noted that the quote unquote seamless bit described by Nintendo didn't apply to PAL World's glider PAL mechanics, and thus judged that there was no infringement. Moreover, Pocket Pair made swift moves to remove the glide ability on PALs from the game. This is too vague. I understand to some extent laws need to be vague because they operate like within the vague, you know, lines of the law, whatnot. Like, even then, this is just, it doesn't make any sense. You're basically saying other company. This is that stuff like with the whole Nemesis system. If you know Warner Bros has copyright, like other games can't use the Nemesis system because it's copyrighted. I don't think this should be allowed. This is ridiculous. What defines as seamless switching? Yeah, it seems like, I mean, they're honestly just worried because, you know, they make Pokemon bad intentionally, right? And they're worried that it's gonna be more popular. But after Nintendo amended patent mid-case using language Mueller describes as puzzling, it had not seen in other patent claims, it had come broadly to cover any scenario in which the player summons and mounts a rideable flying creature, which is arguably a basic mechanic that can be seen in many games, one such example being Honkai Nexus Anima. Okay, so they're relating it to this simply because of how the new Honkai game is very similar in concept to what Pokemon is, right? On August 29th, Hoyoverse released new preview footage of Nexus Anima gameplay. The video shows the player riding on both ground and flying creatures within the first 30 seconds. Based on the video, Mueller says Nexus Anima clearly infringes on the Nintendo patent. That is, this quote-unquote infringement demonstrates how much the patent overreaches. I would agree. It's so basic that it could not be right to prohibit all other game makers from implementing it, he comments. True. Also, riding creatures and riding objects that are flying is like a fundamental human-like thing. It's kind of like the whole idea of Nintendo trying to patent catch and release. Doesn't make any sense. It's a thing that we've done for literally thousands of years, or like attempted to for thousands of years in terms of, you know, flying. And it's we're just saying that nobody else can have mounts in their games. Like, this is just crazy. It's important to note that this does not mean Nintendo will take legal action against Hoyoverse. This is an important distinction. Again, I don't expect Nintendo to take action against Hoyoverse, but Hoyo is big enough to where they might try if they I mean, I don't know. There's obvious overlap because this game took inspiration from it, but you know, they're also operating inside of China. So who's to say? And the outcome of their litigation with Pocket Pair still remains to be seen. Of course, this is a court case that's been going on for a long time. It's crazy. But yeah, we're gonna take a look at the actual footage here. So I would have uploaded this as a separate video to react to, and that'd be boring. Because I would have just been trashing on it. I'm going to now, obviously. But, you know, at least we can do an interesting spin on it for this one, right? Since there's apparently a possible legal case going on, right? I don't think there's anything else I need to, yeah. Anyways, yeah, let's just hop into this. The one thing I can say, like, right off the bat is that obviously, like, this is in beta and it does already have that, like, usual Hoyo polish that you've seen. But they are going for a more Pokemon-like style. You show somebody a screenshot of this, they'd think it's one of the new Pokemon games. 100%. They're also reusing similar characters like Kiana here. Yeah, how bad could Gacha make the game? This looks a bit like Aether, and he even has like a, you know, crest on him. I also don't think it's intentionally, well, it might be intentionally like Aether. Oh, wait a minute, my bad, chat. Forgot to mute that, there we go. Yeah, I mean, animations look a little stiff, but they're probably working on that. Obviously, Pokemon-like mechanics. Gunner, this is going for a younger audience. Sorry, let me lower the volume, it's a little loud. I don't mean to like talk over it. Yeah. Yo, is that Iron Mouse? This is the most kid-friendly Hoyo game immediately, dude. Like, their other games are 100% gooner. There's, like, zero goon here. I mean, like, there's bathing suits up here, but, like, there's just nothing going on. And not even, they're basically fully clothed. I mean, yeah, I say that, but, like, you can see, but, like, these are, like, the least gooner swimsuits possible. This is actually, like, the most family-friendly Hoyo game. Also, you immediately know it's Hoyo because they have the exact same UI as all their other games. The one thing I will say I actually like... No, there's gameplay in here, it's later. The main thing within the lawsuit is the 30 seconds of the flying mechanics. But I do want to take a look at the rest of this. This is the one thing I do actually like about this, is that there is a character creator to some extent. I actually think this is a cool feature. This is the only W that this game has, though, for me. Yeah, all the icons are the exact same, and they're in the top right, everything, yeah. See, look at this. You can't even make your character goon. Like, this is so safe compared to their other games. It's crazy. Also, I will say, I actually think this design for definitely not Vaporeon actually looks pretty cool. That's straight up just a koala. That's just an avocado. See, some of these make sense, but some of these are just straight up like objects or like creatures. Like there's not even a interesting spin on them. But as you can see, there's like mini games and stuff. I will say, like, I don't mind trying to make the mini games they do for like events necessarily into like a whole game. But like they could have put this inside their other games, if you know what I'm saying. Like this could be stuff that's put in the other games. Obviously, there's different development teams, but man, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that for sure. It's nice to see that there's a game that's not doing anything gooning at all. Which is, it's pretty rare coming from China. I'm still confused why they have Iron Mouse as a playable character. This is the gameplay, by the way. Teamfight Tactics. They just sit here and auto battle. Dude, this is literally just Iron Man. I mean, like, I'm not a fan of the gameplay. Obviously, they're trying to mix it up with buffs. Or, sorry, I know there's buffs. That's the stupidest thing I've said today. Well, I'm going to say something more stupid in about 30 minutes, probably. Hoyo normally tries to mix stuff up by, like, changing things to fit their style and whatnot, but this is just not gameplay I'm super interested in whatsoever. And the thing that I was going to say is that I am curious about, and I brought this up the other day, is I wonder if this game is going to get the hate brigade or the hate campaign that Zinless did. Now, Zenless, there's multiple factors that led into that. Part of it was the TVs, part of it was just, community sentiment, all that stuff. My opinion of it, though, yesterday, same one, is that I don't think it is, but I'll give you two reasons. One, I think it's because it's going for a completely different target audience. And two, for that same reason, I think everybody else is going to be too busy hitting on each other and like not even realize this game exists. Like but because it's a Honkai game, I feel like it's also going to get glazed too. And you're going to see a lot of people play it. But I think it's going to be one of those things where it's like people don't care because it's TFT. Like, I think we're going to get a bunch of people who play it day one and then immediately just don't care after the fact. And so we're not going to see this like hate brigade, because like the thing with Zenless was actually a good game. Like who's really out there like trying to play a gotcha TFT? And like, if you want to play TFT, why don't you actually play a non-gotcha version, right? Does anybody get what I'm saying? I don't know. I just want to know what happens when it does release, what the response is going to be. Are we going to have a massive hate campaign against it, or are people just not going to care? You can't even use the characters either. That's another thing. People don't like that you can't use the characters, and that's one of the key thing for these gacha games. It's going to be entirely revolved around their pets, right? Or maybe the characters have some sort of buffs, and that's going to be what rigs it for the mechanics. I don't know. I want to play Blade. Yes, Blade will be in here. We know Kiana's in here. Whatnot. Looks mid as hell. I mean, that's my thoughts exactly. Is this March 7th? This character looks a lot like March. Like the face. It's just auto battle gameplay. It's like, who really cares? They're gonna add another Bronya, possibly. Yeah, possibly another Bronya, but I don't know. I'm not super interested in the gameplay, to be honest. Again, the assumption is that it's a gacha game because it's the only thing that Hoyoverse makes, right? I don't know about you guys, but I'm not at all excited about this release. Like, this is a Hoyo release that's like, I'm just like, this. It's like, there's a couple of cool designs in there, don't get me wrong. But I just like, I just don't care. I mean, like, it'd be cool to play as this guy. A demon dude? Fuck yeah, he's looking sick. But this is the gameplay. Right? So it's like, man, like, I don't know. The only thing I can really say is like, it's just not for me. It's like the main thing. Maybe all of them are playable because it says administrators. I don't know. It's like not a big deal. That being said, I do want to take a bit of a deeper look on some of the other posts here. We're not going to read the whole thing like the initial post. We're just going to look at a couple of key points. And this is all in reference to the POW World, copyright thing, if you are familiar with that situation. All right. So the other part of this story here is the actual people over at Games Fray with Hoyoverse upcoming Nexus Anima game infringes on mounting of flying objects patent that Nintendo is asserting against Pocket Pair's POW World, right? So we already read the context of the whole thing with, and that this is a given for this story is that, as you should know, Nintendo has a copyright lawsuit against Pocket Pair, which is the people that made POW World, because, well, really their game got too big. But mostly they're accusing them of copying things like the whole mounting thing and the capturing of monsters that they tried to change and whatnot. That's why they just for the sake of it, for the time being, they removed those features from POW World, like the whole throwing the ball, capturing them, stuff like that. Like all that's been altered. So yeah, it's that. Hoyo, of course, released their game, which, or not released, they announced the new game, which has similar features to the, Pokemon and these other games. Again, Nintendo has a history of actually asserting like legal pressure over different companies within the gaming industry, which I don't think they should be allowed to do this, but you know, it is what it is. Uh, yeah. Anyways, the main thing that is important to know is that Nintendo's wording is too vague, mostly, because they use smooth switching of writing objects, which is like, I really don't know, bro. But yeah, because of the fact that Nintendo like made this change to their actual lawsuit, it may get delayed in the case. That's really what they want to tell you there. Then this is what the important part is. In a legal sense, it does not serve as defense for one company if another infringes on the patent. However, in one lesson learned from Hoyoverse's video, that is Nintendo amended the patent overreaches. It is a patent that is simply being able to summon a flying object and mounting it. That is so basic that it cannot be it cannot be right to prohibit all other game makers from implementing it. Furthermore, Nexus Anima arguably involves Pokemon's like characters, and the question is whether Nintendo decided to bully a Japanese indie and doesn't want to pick a fight, for example, Chinese or US companies. Yep. That is the other thing that is important to know. It seems that Nintendo just wants to bully smaller companies and make it a legal precedent so that they could, you know, then go and potentially do a bigger company or just not do it at all and just, you know, snuff out all competition by going over these small companies. Again, there's a lot of issues with them doing this as a whole legally. That's really the important part we care about. We already looked at the video, and they explained the same thing the first 30 seconds with the flying objects with this flying dragon that is at the very start of the video. And yeah, the video shows different scenes without a transition. So it is known whether a player can jump from a horse. Is now known whether a player can jump from like a horse, character riding a bird, or the other way around. That was, but is no longer a requirement to infringe on one of Nintendo's three Japanese patents in suit. A Japanese patent attorney looked at the patent. This is the actual patent here. I'm not going to go over this, but you can see that this is the actual description of the patent and their claims here. Yeah, so a player character can ride from selected among the characters owned by the player character. Riding is given. The player character is made to ride the selected rideable character and made movable. Again, the way things are worded legally, of course, are going to be a bit different than they would be in otherwise, but I'm going to link this down below if anybody is curious about actually looking up the patent for themselves from, you know, Nintendo, right? Anyways, going back to this. Where was I? Yeah, in its original form and expressed that is viewed Power World did not come within the smooth switching mechanism that Nintendo's patent covered. So there was no infringement. And this was earlier this year, January 26, 2025. From the article. Oh yeah, this article is by Lauren Mueller, which we mentioned earlier. Came out yesterday, of course. So Nintendo still thought it was likely to lose, at least in the smooth switching writing objects patent, and exercised its procedural rights to request a modification to the patent at the Japan office that amended to the one we see further above. Yep. It's really weird that they're even able to do this. I just think it's insane. What they did by means of amendment was to drop the language that required smooth switching between flying objects and writing object, with patent that covers every scenario that you can, and a aerial that you can, you can cause an aerial boarding character to appear in the virtual space, meaning that you can summon a bird-like character and it pops up near your character and then board it. Nintendo could go after a large number of game makers. This is absurd that they're able to do this. Absurd. Pocket Pair already demoed colliding objects in 2021, even before Nintendo filed its lawsuit, switching patent application. Patent offices should act as gatekeepers, not allowing overbroad patent claims. It is a mystery to why the, JPO allowed Nintendo to get away with even when language. Yeah, it's really, really weird that they do that. And when patent officers don't perform that function, there's always the court system. True. The problem is that companies aren't as big as Nintendo, so they can't really fight back against it. They're just kind of getting bullied legally, and they have to, absorb all these legal costs. And because of that, they either have to take it, lose money, or, fight out this battle, lose more money, and then you're out of business. Like, it's just a lose-lose for the company that is not as big as the other company in most cases, right? Especially when it, you know, covers things like patents. Like it's just like you either spend money fighting it, then lose, and so you're out more money, or you settle, remove it from your game, and you're out more money either way, right? Like there's just no winning unless they somehow make it to where, you know, Nintendo is not able to do this, or at least legally they make it to where Nintendo's not able to do this. But even then, they're still out money because they have to pay for the fees, right? The legal fees. So it's like Nintendo's the only one who's coming out really quote unquote unscathed from a scenario like this because they already have the money. They're totally fine as is. But the smaller companies are just kind of screwed over. Unlike in a field like trademark law, Nintendo will not lose its patent rights if it does not sue Hoyoverse. Patent holders can arbitrarily pick one target and leave the other one alone. This is also another problem legally. But that is not principled approach. If Nintendo is seriously concerned over Power World, it must be equally concerned about Honkai Nexus Anima. Yep, I think that's a totally fair take. Ridiculous situation. As I said, I don't think Nintendo should be allowed to do this. I think it's absurd. It's a complete overreach legally. Japan definitely should be changing stuff like that. And this person does bring up a valid point saying because if they're concerned about things like you know, Power World, they should obviously be concerned about Nexus Anima and of course its operations within inside Japan. And if there's any other further games that are like that, you really shouldn't just be targeting specifically the small company because that is not a good look. But hey, Nintendo's gonna probably get away with it, you know. So is what it is. I've already given my thoughts on the game. I'm not super excited for it. It looks kind of boring and all that stuff. But yeah, I am curious what you guys think about this. Comment section below. Like, subscribe to me on Twitch, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out. Hey, yo, I have to add this in a post because since the recording of this, which was like about a week ago at this point, kind of slow on the uploads here, there's actually been an update to the whole like Nintendo situation that I saw on a couple of, you know, other videos, and I want to pull up the article for myself, to where Nintendo's apparently gotten permission to expand the scope of their patent to involve basically all summoning mechanics within games, which is a bit ridiculous, right? And so you can see the article here. I do want to point out a couple of notable lines from the you know, lawyers here that I do think are worth mentioning in you know, context of this video as well. Obviously, it's a video about Hoyoverse's new game, right? So it says right here, last week, however, Nintendo received a more troubling weapon in its legal arsenal. US patent 12,403,397, a patent on summoning and battling characters that the United States Patent and Trademark Office granted with an alarmingly little resistance. According to the patent lawyer Kirk Sigmund, the USPTO granting Nintendo these latest patents isn't just a moment of questionable legal theory, it's an indictment of American patent law. Broadly, I don't disagree with many of the online complaints about these Nintendo patents, said Sigmund, whose opinions do not represent those of his firm and clients. Obviously, they have to put that there for legal reasons, right? As you know, with law, there's a lot of things that you need to be specific about in terms of how things are covered. This does matter, which is why news and journalists should be putting this stuff down, as it obviously doesn't reflect any actual active case. It is just the thought of somebody. It's not something that can be, you know, referenced to legally, right? That's the main distinction there. Sigmund states they have been an embarrassing failure of the US patent system, which is crazy. Now, you're going to see a couple images here that I'll show on screen of what Nintendo's referencing to, and it's honestly crazy that you basically just can't have, you know, any elements of putting creatures in front of you. Dude, what? Like, I can't have a dog in front of me? Like, there's so many things, and this is just ridiculous. It's way too broad, and I'm surprised that Nintendo was allowed to get away with this stuff. What is going on? Yeah, so he claims that these are procedural irregularities, and because of this, Nintendo is able to bully more competitors. Of course, they've, you know, having more tools. Sigmund told PC Gamer that I got a bit of a pushback, but barely. After its initial application, it was deemed invalid due to similarities with existing Tencent Xbox-related properties. Nintendo admitted its claims based on interviews with the USPTO, which then determined that the claims were allowable for substantially the same reasons the patent's application, which genuinely does not make any sense. It's denied before, but now it's just allowed. Like, why even? He also states that that patent case had an even weirder and much less useful prosecution history. Continuing. Most of the claims made in 387 patents single parent case, US patent number 12,246,255, were immediately allowed by the UTPTO, which Sigmund said is a very unusual result. Most claims are rejected at least once. This seems like a situation where the UTPSO essentially gave up and just allowed the case, assuming that the claims were narrow or specific enough to be new without evaluating them too closely. Sigmund said, I strongly disagree with the results. In my view, these claims were no way allowable. This is actually insane that we are just letting these companies, and again, it's not all companies, but it's specific companies, these like primarily it seems these really big ones, just bully the smaller ones legally. And we're not doing our due diligence and actually checking whether or not it should be allowed. Like it's crazy. Like the people, there needs to be restructuring at the office and more strict regulation on this stuff. This stuff needs to be enforced harder so that this cannot happen in the future or even be allowed to begin with in the first place, like what Nintendo is doing currently. Those are my thoughts. Again, I would suggest looking at this article yourself if you do want to get the full gist of it. I'm just going to do a brief overview of this. But again, according to the article, they're saying that this patent based on summoning and battling with sub-characters using specific language suggesting based on the Let's Go mechanics of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet games. Despite its relevance to a conceit in countless games, calling characters to battle enemies for you, it was allowed without any pushback whatsoever from the USPTO, which Sigmund said is essentially unheard of. Again, as I stated before, this should basically never be allowed. It's ridiculous that was even able to happen, especially since Nintendo has a history of doing this stuff. These things should be taken with extra scrutiny. If there is somebody who is going, you know, I mean, to be fair, they really all should be taken at the utmost scrutiny. But it is ridiculous that Nintendo is, you know, forming a history of, I would say, is arguably patent abuse in terms of the fact that they specifically are using them to go over to competitors within the space and telling them that they can't make that game legally. Sigmund states, like the case above, the reasons for allowance don't give us any hint why it was allowed. Examiner just paraphrases the claims after block quoting them without explaining why the claims are allowed over the prior art, Sigmund said. This is extremely unusual and raises a large number of red flags. Yeah, again, massive red flag that with these vague descriptions and figures that Nintendo is just able to get away with all this stuff. I have no earthly idea how the examiner could in good faith allow this so quickly. This is actually ridiculous, bro. Like look, Nintendo has some good things about them, but then they just they have to go and make things worse at the same time. Like why do this? This allowance should not have happened, full stop, he said. Pragmatically speaking, though, it is not impossible to be sued for patent infringement, even when the claim infringement argument is weak, and bad patents like this cast a massive shadow on the industry. In my opinion, none of these patents I've discussed here should have been allowed. It's shocking and offensive that they were. The USPTO dropped the ball big time and is going to externalize a lot of uncertainty and potentially litigation costs onto developers and companies that do not deserve it. This is my main worry, is that it's going to harm developers and make video games essentially a walled garden, right? It's going to lock off the market for a lot of potential games to exist. And you're going to have this utopia of Nintendo that they have, you know, manufactured, and that you can only have this. You can't make your own version of Pokemon. No, you only have Pokemon. There's no Digimon. There's no Pal World. Obviously, I know Digimon's, you know, a bit different. But to give an example, is that because Nintendo's going to make it legally impossible for you, they're not going to have their section of the garden completely walled off. You can't enter it. You can't look at the flowers even. It's just them. Only they can have it. Like, people talk about Nintendo being very greedy. To some extent, this is what is justifying those thoughts towards them. I mean, obviously they're a corporation, they want to make money, but it's stuff like this that makes like people's view of Nintendo worse than they probably want it to be. But at the same time, to them, I'm pretty sure they just are viewing it as protecting their own IP rights, right? Even though realistically, it's not going to harm them at the end of the day that, oh, there's a, you know, Pokemon lookalike. people are there for Pokemon in the first place, right? So I really don't think it would harm them in the way they probably are perceiving it to be. But again, I don't know. Big Japanese corporations, really hard to say. But my main concern is how it's going to affect other companies and developers, as they won't be able to make these games that you might enjoy playing, right? Maybe, for free or a paid experience, whatever it may be. It's just going to make things worse within the gaming space, like as a whole. Sigmund says he's helped investors protect their investions from IP theft perpetrated by major companies. Insists that patent system still has merit. That's the kind of thing patents are meant to do, he said. They were not made to allow a big player to game the system, get an overly broad patent that they should never have received in the first place, and then go around bullying would-be competition with the threat of legal, questionable lawsuit. Yeah, as I said, Nintendo really should not have been able to acquire stuff like this. It does not make any sense. And then lastly, I want to mention, of course, he states, realistically, this means that patent validity issues are being relegated to lawsuits, not a good situation, as that often entails millions of dollars costs and a lot of risk, Sigmund said. In practice, this means bad patents get to fester on the market for longer and provide a bigger threat for the industry as a whole. As I state throughout this video, it's ridiculous that Nintendo's even able to do this, and that Hoyoverse is potentially going to have to waste money on stuff like this, when really none of this should have happened in the first place, right? They're kind of just like burning cash in the legal system for essentially no reason, right? Look, as somebody who is becoming a game developer, if I wanted to make a Pokemon game, or Pokemon-like game, I should say, legally, I do not want to. Nintendo, do not sue me. Why is it gonna be, why is it looking like it's gonna be impossible for me to make that kind of game? Because Nintendo's just gonna sue me, so like I can't do that at all? It's ridiculous. But yeah, I guess that's it for the video.